As whistleblowers from the NIH, FDA, and CDC speak out, the COVID narrative is falling apart. Yet those of you who for a long time have suspected we weren't being told the whole truth are conspiracy theorists. Right? Today I'm going to be telling you how whistleblowers from the FDA, that's the Food and Drug Administration, the NIH, and the CDC, all have people coming forward to talk to a prominent and respected Johns Hopkins scientist about the way that information has been repressed and mismanaged and mishandled. In this instance, primarily around the recommendation for vaccines for children, but not just that, across the whole scope of this 2-year-long pandemic. And if there's any doubt that there's been any confusion at all, just look at these statements and see if you can spot any contradiction.
You're not going to get COVID if you have these vaccinations.
Tonight, President Biden testing positive for COVID-19 yet again.
Oh, it is confusing, isn't it? You definitely won't get COVID. I've got COVID. Obviously, I'm having a bit of fun there, and you must always make your own health decisions because you are a responsible, brilliant person. You've got this far. You've overcome the many obstacles in your life that you've gone through that no one will ever know that you've surmounted. You don't need me to tell you what to do. You don't need anyone to tell you what to do. But here's some information from Marty Makary, who I think he's some sort of conspiracy theorist over at the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. If I'm right, David Icke and Alex Jones set up the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, and Marty Makary, he just works there. Also, Dr. Tracy Beth Herg, an epidemiologist affiliated with the Florida Department of Health, which I believe was set up on a grassy knoll by Lee Harvey Oswald. Doctors and scientists at the top levels of the NIH, FDA, and CDC are variously frustrated, exasperated, and alarmed about the direction of the agencies to which they've devoted their careers. That's not what you want, is it, when you've devoted your career to something? How do you feel about devoting your career to that agency? Well, I'm sort of frustrated, exasperated, and alarmed. Welcome to the firm. Right now, internal critics of these agencies are focused on one issue above all. Why did the FDA and the CDC issue strong blanket recommendations for COVID vaccines in children? 3 weeks ago, the CDC vigorously recommended mRNA COVID vaccines for 20 million children under the age of 5. Dr. Rochelle Walensky, director of the CDC, declared that the mRNA COVID vaccine should be given to everyone 6 months or older because they are safe and effective. The trouble is that this sweeping recommendation was based on extremely weak and inconclusive data provided by, wait for it, Pfizer and Moderna. This sweeping recommendation, was it based on strong and conclusive data? Oh no, it was extremely weak and inconclusive data. Well, thank God the recommendations are sweeping then. Start with Pfizer. Using a 3-dose vaccine in 992 children between the ages of 6 months and 5 years, Pfizer found no statistically significant evidence of vaccine efficacy. Let me say that again. No statistically significant evidence. In the subgroup of children aged 6 months to 2 years, the trial also found that the vaccine could result in a 99% lower chance of infection, but that they could also have a 370% increased chance of being infected. In other words, Pfizer reported a range of vaccine efficacy so wide that no conclusion could be inferred. So it's not that the vaccine definitely does nothing, but it certainly isn't that it definitely does something. Is that following the science to make a recommendation on that basis? No reputable medical journal would accept such sloppy and incomplete results with such a small sample size. More to the point, these results should have given pause to those who are in charge of public health. Now, I should point out that Professor Marty Makary has been inundated with communication from former staff members at the FDA, NIH, and CDC since publishing in Newsweek. We did a video about that article. I'll link to it at the end. Since then, whistleblowers have been reaching out. We're in disarray. It's chaos here. You can check out the article on Substack for yourself. We'll put a link in the description. This is amazing information from Marty Makary, what I would call a proper scientist who is following data in order to reach conclusions and pose further questions, not simply making recommendations which, here's a wacky coincidence, make a profit for Pfizer and Moderna. That's weird, because they're the people that funded the study. Wow. Moderna's results, they conducted a study on 6,388 children with 2 doses, were not much better. Against asymptomatic infections, they claimed a very weak vaccine efficacy of just 4% in children aged 6 months to 2 years. They also claimed an efficacy of 23% in children between 2 and 6 years old. But neither result was statistically significant. Against symptomatic infections, Moderna's vaccine did show efficacy that was statistically significant, but the efficacy was low. 50% in children aged 6 months to 2 years and 42% in children between 2 and 6 years old. What I believe is that the mainstream media, the government, and Big Pharma ought to be giving you access directly to that information. I'm not recommending, of course, why the hell would I, that you would vaccinate your children or not vaccinate your children on the basis of this information. I would simply see it as my job to tell you that information and then you decide. I have children and I can look at that information and I can make a decision about what I would do with my own children and what I will do with my children. I believe that you have the same right to do that. And you might make a different choice than me, and that's all right. That's okay. That doesn't make me bad or you bad or anyone bad. We certainly don't need to fight each other over that. What we should be uniting over is the right to have direct access to that information so we can make our own decisions. You might have a different family to me. You might have grown up in a family of doctors. You might deal with levels of sickness that I can only imagine. Or I might know stuff about my family's personal health and personal circumstances that might make me come to a different outcome. That doesn't make me bad or you bad. Why would we focus on that? Why was the whole 2 years of the pandemic devoted to condemning people that had a different perspective, that had doubts about it? Or, vice versa. Why condemn anybody? Why do that? Why spend our limited time here on this planet when we're supposed to be awakening together, condemning one another, while truly malevolent forces continue to succeed? Then there's the matter of how a long vaccine gives protection. We know from data in adults that it's generally a matter of months, but we have no such data for young children. And yet the FDA and the CDC pushed it through. That slap in the face of science may explain why only 2% of parents of children aged under 5 have chosen to get the COVID vaccine, and 40% of parents in rural areas say their paediatricians did not recommend the COVID vaccine for their children. That's how medicine used to be practiced, didn't it? You would go and see your doctor if you trusted your doctor would make a recommendation, you'd go with the doctor. It used to be like a political issue. Oh no, I don't feel well. For God's sake, get the president on the phone. America was meant to be founded on individual freedom, state freedom, community freedom, the right to pursue happiness. These are the values that belong not only to America, but I would argue to humanity as a whole. Make your own decisions. Allow people to live their own lives. Be who you are. Run your community how your community wants to be run according to democratic consensus, not top-down edicts that come from the WEF or the WHO or the CDC or the NIH. Give us the information, let us decide. This isn't the first time that COVID vaccine recommendations based on scant evidence have been pushed through these agencies. You're right about that, baby! Most recently, back in May, the lack of clinical evidence for booster shots in young people created a stir at the FDA. The White House promoted it hard even before FDA regulators had seen any data. If it isn't based on data, then what the hell has all this follow the science stuff been about? They were making recommendations before they'd seen the data. They were condemning unvaccinated people. Oh, follow the science, follow the science. You follow the science. Let us follow the science. Give us the science, we'll follow it for ourselves. Anything other than that is propaganda at best and tyranny at worst. And that's why people are cynical. And that's why people are frustrated. And that is why people want change. That's why people don't trust the media. That's why people don't trust the government. That's why they don't trust Big Pharma. It's not complicated. Once they saw the data, they weren't impressed. Oh, it showed no clear benefit against severe disease for people under 40. Is that the data that you're following? Is that the science you're inviting us to follow? The FDA's two top vaccine regulators, Dr. Marion Gruber, director of the FDA's vaccine office, and her deputy director, Dr. Philip Krause, quit the agency last year over political pressure to authorize vaccine boosters in young people. Their own people are quitting because they feel pressurized. They feel that they are unable to follow the science. So what we were told was science was in fact political pressure. The same way as 100 years ago or 200 years ago, you'd be invited to follow a particular religious orthodoxy. This is the truth, this is the truth, burn them at the stake. Can we look at the facts? Can we follow the date? It's all there in this old book. Can we read it? Sorry, it's in a language you don't understand. Tell me how the science orthodoxy isn't the same. If it's not based on transparent data available to all people so they can make decisions for themselves, how is that different from the kind of orthodox dogma that the secular project, i.e. having the state responsible for organising people's political life rather than crazy old-fashioned religious stuff, how is it any different? After their departure, they wrote scathing commentaries explaining why the data did not support a broad booster authorization, arguing in the Washington Post that the push for boosters for everyone could actually prolong the pandemic, citing concerns that boosting based on an outdated variant could be counterproductive. These are not anti-vaxxers. These are scientists. These are people that probably fight to the death for the right to give people medicines that are effective. They've devoted their careers to effective medicine. This is not anti-science. This is not anti-doctors, medicine, research, data, double-blind testing, clinical conditions. This is not against that. This is against propaganda and tyranny that's been framed as science in order to prevent reasonable discourse, public debate, and personal autonomy. So let's call it what it is. One subject these doctors and scientists feel passionately about but feel they cannot bring up is natural immunity. Why, they wonder, are we insisting on immunising children who already have some immunity to the disease due to having contracted COVID? Why can that not be part of the conversation? Why are scientists not able to express their opinion? Like, even if they're wrong, why not allow it to be expressed so that the conversation can happen publicly? As of February, 75% of children in the US already had natural immunity from prior infection. It could easily be over 90% of children today, given how ubiquitous Omicron has been since then. The CDC's own research shows that natural immunity is better than vaccinated immunity, and a recent New England Journal of Medicine study from Israel has questioned the benefits of vaccinating previously infected persons. Many countries have long credited natural immunity towards vaccine mandates, but not the US. There you go. What science do you want to follow? If you don't allow people to have access to that kind of information and make their own decisions, do you know what I start to think? You've got an agenda, and that agenda is based on profit and power. And that's the agenda you're pursuing, and that's why people are leaving the FDA, and that's why people are leaving the CDC and NIH, because they're not all baddies and villains. And I'm not suggesting there is any malevolent, unhuman, occultist thing going on. I don't know. How could I know? But when you prevent and stifle proper debate and transparency, then people do start to think that something strange is going on. I don't blame people for thinking that. In this, the leaders of the American health agencies made the US an international outlier in how it treats children. Sweden never offered vaccination to children under 12. Finland limits COVID vaccines to children under 12 who are at high risk. Right, so a sensible decision is made. These children are at risk, we recommend it. Oh, wouldn't it be more profitable if we vaccinated all children? Yeah, but it'll be unnecessary and you'll lose the trust of the population. The Norwegian Institute of Public Health has appropriately stated that some children may benefit, but previous infection offers as good of protection as the vaccine against reinfection. Follow the science. Denmark announced on June the 22nd that its recommendation to vaccinate any children under the age of 16 was a mistake. Wow, that sounds like proper government coming out of Denmark. We made a mistake, we're sorry, we're wrong. This is the truth as we understand it best now. The vaccinations were not predominantly recommended for the child's sake, but to ensure pandemic control, said Søren Brostrøm, head of the Danish Ministry of Health. Well, as long as you can guarantee that that is the reason to prevent the pandemic spreading, and not in order to generate profits, and not just as a reflexive response to get power where power is accessible, then I think you can have an open discourse with the people that you've elected to serve you. But when you see Joe Biden say, or Fauci say, oh, you won't get the disease if you have this vaccine, then they go, I've got the disease, you have to acknowledge that something's changed. Hey, we were wrong. So now, going forward, we're going to be honest. The leaders of the CDC, the FDA, and the NIH should welcome internal discussion, even dissension, based on evidence. Silencing physicians is not following the science. Less absolutism and more humility by the men and women running our public health agencies would go a long way in rebuilding public trust. Well there, these two doctors, Marty Makary and Tracy Beth Herg, in my opinion, are approaching this subject in exactly the right way. Transparency, honesty, openness, science, empiricism, communication, trust and faith in individual decisions. That is the kind of science that I want to follow. I want to follow science that is based on helping people, not science that could be based on making a profit and increasing centralized power.
Through the madness and the lies, as they're holding back the truth, no matter what they try, I will always fight for you. I will save your innocence. They are trying to remove. I am here at your defense, and I will always fight for you. Yes, I will always fight for you. I will stand here in the way, and I will not give up on you. I will shield you from the pain. In the battle on the field, there is evil on the move, but I hope that you can feel that I will always fight for you. In the darkness of the times, there's a light that shines the proof. It'll soon reveal the crime, so I won't stop this fight for you. Yes, I will always fight for you. I will brave every attack, and I will not give up on you. I will always have your back. So to every single mother, father, stand up for your sons and daughters. Do not back down, don't let up. You are all they have for armor, so make this a war to win. Look in their eyes and tell them that I will always fight for you. I will stand guard at the gate, and I will not give up on you. I will stop each shot they take. Yes, I will always fight